The invitation hovered between them like a spark that could either warm the room or burn it down. Rain tapped the windows softly as if the night itself was holding its breath. When she said, "Do you want to stay here tonight?" he answered without a smile, without a joke, and without hesitation, "I'm not sleeping on the sofa." Her name was Hannah, and she had learned long ago that words mattered, not just what was said, but how it was heard. She studied his face for a moment, reading the calm certainty there, the absence of expectation. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't flirtation. It was honesty, plain and unpolished, and it disarmed her more than charm ever could. They stood in the living room of her small, timber-beamed house, the kind that held warmth in its bones. Outside, the countryside rested under a low sky, fields dark and quiet, the road slick with rain. Inside, a single lamp cast a soft glow over bookshelves and framed photographs, small anchors to a life built carefully, deliberately, after years of upheaval. They had not planned this night. It had grown out of circumstance, as so many meaningful things do. A delayed train. A missed bus. A storm that refused to pass. He had been heading back to the city after a long week visiting his parents when the weather and the schedules conspired against him. Hannah, an old friend from university days, more acquaintance than confidant back then, had been the closest safe harbor. "You can stay," she had said earlier, practical and kind. "I have a guest room." Hours later, conversation had stretched time thin. Tea had turned to laughter, laughter to long pauses that felt comfortable rather than strained. The guest room, untouched, waited upstairs. But the invitation she voiced now was different. Not careless. Not calculated. Simply honest. She nodded slowly at his response. "Fair enough," she said. "I wouldn't ask you to." They climbed the stairs together, the old wood creaking underfoot, each step echoing with 1,000 unsaid things. The bedroom was simple, wide window, clean lines, a bed made with care rather than decoration. Hannah gestured toward it, then stepped back, giving him space. "I meant what I said," she added quietly. "You can stay. And you don't have to pretend to be uncomfortable to make me comfortable." He met her eyes, surprised by the clarity in her voice. "I won't," he said. "And I won't assume anything either." That, more than anything, settled the air between them. They slept that night with a respectful distance, the kind that spoke not of fear but of trust. The storm eased outside, rain thinning to a whisper. The house held them gently, as if aware that something fragile and important was unfolding within its walls. Morning arrived in pale gold. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily in the air. He woke first, listening to the quiet rhythms of the house, the soft sounds of Hannah moving in the kitchen below. There was no awkwardness, no rush to leave. Just the simple understanding that staying did not require explanation. Over breakfast, they talked about everything they had avoided the night before. The years between university and now. The choices that had shaped them. The disappointments that had taught them restraint, and the small victories that had restored their faith in themselves. Hannah spoke of her work at the local school, of the satisfaction she found in consistency and care. He spoke of the city, of ambition tempered by burnout, of learning that success without connection felt strangely hollow. "You seem different," she said at one point, studying him over the rim of her mug. "So do you," he replied. "In a good way." They smiled, not as people circling an outcome, but as two adults recognizing growth in one another. It was not a beginning in the traditional sense. There was no dramatic confession, no sweeping declaration. Just a quiet alignment, like two paths that had finally learned how to run alongside each other. When the roads reopened and the trains resumed, he packed his bags slowly. Hannah stood by the door, arms folded loosely, watching without urgency. "You don't have to rush," she said. "I know," he answered. "But I'll come back. If you want." She considered that, not the promise, but the question beneath it. "I'd like that," she said finally. "On purpose next time. Not because of a storm." He laughed softly. Deal. As he drove away, the countryside opening up before him, he felt lighter than he had in months. Not because something had happened, but because something hadn't been forced. In a world that often mistook closeness for entitlement, they had chosen something rarer: mutual respect, patience, and the courage to let connection grow at its own pace. Back in the quiet house, Hannah made her way upstairs, straightening the bed, opening the window to let in fresh air. She paused for a moment, hands resting on the sill, breathing in the calm. The night had given her something unexpected, not romance, not certainty, but reassurance. Proof that kindness could exist without cost, that intimacy could begin with boundaries honored rather than crossed. Sometimes, staying the night is not about where you sleep. It's about being seen, being safe, and knowing that when you choose to remain, it's because you want to, not because you have nowhere else to go.